Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
Stormy Daniels sues Trump over hush agreement. Adult film star Stormy Daniels filed a lawsuit against President Donald Trump on Tuesday claiming a hush agreement that was created several months before the 2016 election was never binding because the president never signed it. In the lawsuit, Daniels, whose given name is Stephanie Clifford, also states that she began an intimate relationship with Trump in the summer of 2006 and that it continued into 2007. The complaint, which was tweeted out by Daniels' lawyer Michael Avenatti and filed in Los Angeles, said Trump purposely did not sign the agreement so he could later, if need be, publicly disavow any knowledge of the contract and of Daniels. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The agreement was created during the 2016 campaign, after the release of the infamous Access Hollywood tape. The tape included a recording of Trump bragging about forcefully kissing and groping women. After its release, also resulted in a number of women coming forward alleging Trump of sexual misconduct. Trump's lawyer Michael Cohen drafted the agreement and named both Trump and Daniels, in addition to Essential Consultants LLC, which was created by Cohen for purpose of hiding the true source of funds to be used to pay Daniels according to the lawsuit. Reports of the agreement came to light earlier this year after the Wall Street Journal reported that Daniels was paid $130,000 to cover up the alleged affair. Cohen last month said that he personally paid Daniels and was not reimbursed by Trump or his campaign. In the lawsuit, the adult film star claims $130,000 was wired to her attorney's trust account despite there being no legal agreement. Daniels also claims that Cohen has continued to try and keep her quiet. As recently as February 27, 2018, according to the lawsuit, Cohen filed a bogus arbitration against Daniels and did not provide her with notice of the proceeding or basic due process, the lawsuit claims. To be clear, the attempts to intimidate Ms. Clifford into silence and shut her up in order to protect Mr. Trump continue unabated, the lawsuit states. For example, only days ago on or about February 27, 2018, Mr. Trump's attorney Mr. Cohen surreptitiously initiated a bogus arbitration proceeding against Ms. Clifford in Los Angeles. Remarkably, he did so without even providing Ms. Clifford with notice of the proceeding and basic due process. Top takeaways from the Texas primary. The 2018 midterms kicked off in eye-opening fashion in Texas Tuesday, as a series of surprises in Democratic House primaries jolted the landscape while the party's large turnout sent a warning to Republicans nationwide. But the GOP remained in the driver's seat in statewide races throughout Texas by night's end, leaving most of the shocks to down-ballot races. Washington Democrats saw some of their runoff plans go down the drain. Well-funded candidates fell in contest after contest. George P. Bush unexpectedly cruised to victory. And women kept on winning. With lawmakers across the country closely eyeing Tuesday's contests for hints of what's to come this year, those results and others provided a series of vivid lessons. Here are Politico's 6 takeaways from the first primaries of 2018. Democratic enthusiasm is real, but may not be enough in Texas. It's a familiar pattern by now. Every few years, Democrats insist they're going to be competitive statewide in Texas because of their party's energy and demographic change sweeping the state. And every few years, they fall short. This year, though, the state's Democrats were certain the landscape would look different after more Democrats, 465,000, than Republicans, 420,000, voted in Texas' 15 largest counties in early voting. It appeared to be a clear continuation of the boundless Democratic energy popping up all across the country in opposition to Donald Trump, but by the time Election Day numbers came in, the enthusiasm dimmed, slightly. Data from the state's other 239 counties favored Republicans, and by the end of the night, there were roughly 500,000 more votes in the GOP primary than in the Democratic primary. It was a clear improvement over the 2010 and 2014 midterm cycles, when Republicans made up roughly 70% of primary voters. And more Democrats voted in the senatorial and gubernatorial primaries than in any comparable race since 2002. But it likely suggested that much of the Democratic Party's early vote came from existing primary voters who were excited to participate this year, rather than any enormous tranche of newly activated voters. That means competing statewide, including against Senator Ted Cruz, remains an uphill challenge for Democrats. And Representative Beto O'Rourke, the Democratic standard-bearer in that race, still must consolidate his party after two relatively unknown rivals picked up over 38% of the primary vote. Still, their voters' newfound exuberance may be enough to swing individual down-ballot races both in Texas and around the country. DC Dems get brushed back. Laura Moser isn't going anywhere, and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee's first attempt at thinning a primary field failed. The DCCC dumped opposition research against Moser, a journalist and activist, viewing her as a candidate with too much baggage to win in November. Instead, Moser will face off against Lizzie Pendle Fletcher, an attorney, in May for a shot at a suburban district that Democrats believe is key to flipping the House. Moser, who raised more than $130,000 after the DCCC's attacks late last month, is now laying the groundwork for an outsider, Bernie Sanders-style campaign. In a TV ad, Moser urges voters to reject Washington party bosses, telling us who to choose, adding, "We tried that before, and look where it got us." The DCCC's attack backfired, showing them to be a little toothless, said a Democratic strategist, granted anonymity to talk candidly about party strategy. And once the DCCC inserted itself, it became inevitable that the same ghosts of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Bernie Sanders and 2016 will pop up. The DCCC, in a memo released early Wednesday morning, said that voters picked a clear frontrunner and remain in a strong position to win in November, DCCC spokesman Cole Leiter said in a statement. Fletcher, who's backed by Emily's List, has drawn opposition from unions. Working Families Party spent $20,000 on negative ads against her in the primary, accusing her law firm of attacking the right of immigrant women to stand up for themselves in the workplace, according to one digital ad. Trump's popularity even helps a Bush, in Texas, no less. By avoiding a runoff in his re-election bid as land commissioner on Tuesday night, George P. Bush, son of Jeb, nephew of George W., grandson of George H.W., showed Republicans that sometimes it pays to lean all the way into your ties to the president, no matter how close to the party establishment you may seem. At least in conservative states like Texas. A member of perhaps the state's most prominent modern political family, the 41-year-old Bush nonetheless relied heavily on his support from both Trump and Donald Trump Jr. to clear 50% in a race against a field that included former Land Commissioner Jerry Patterson. Patterson had loudly criticized Bush for his first term in the job, including his work on preserving the Alamo, but a final stretch ad blitz from Bush underscored the incumbent's conservatism as he hit Patterson for not backing Trump in 2016. At a time Republicans around the country are trying to figure out how to position themselves with respect to Trump, Bush demonstrated that in a consistently Republican playing field like Texas, the combination of universal name identification and appeals to the Trump-loving base can be enough to overcome even harsh inter-party attacks. Cash isn't necessarily king. 3 Democrats, who led fundraising throughout much of 2017, failed even to reach the runoffs in top-tier congressional races, despite their early money advantage. Now Democrats are left watching candidates who have demonstrated less fundraising prowess battle it out over the next 2 months for the nomination before being able to reload against GOP incumbents with a head start in the general election. Ed Meyer, a former State Department administration official, led his Democratic opponents in fundraising throughout 2017 and headed into the primary for a competitive, Dallas area seat with the most cash on hand. But Meyer, who aired TV ads in the expensive Dallas media market, finished in 4th place. Alred, a former NFL football player, didn't air any TV ads and struggled to raise money, but was the top vote getter. "You have to do more than be the biggest fundraiser, because Democrats want to be inspired," said Isaac Baker, a Democratic media consultant who worked on Alred's campaign. In the Houston area battleground district, Alex Triantafyllis raised more than $1 million, topping all of his primary opponents in total raised during the race. But Triantafyllis, a nonprofit executive, still finished behind three of them. Jay Hewlings, a former federal prosecutor who was running in Texas' 23rd District, a traditional swing district, picked up early national support from Minority Whip Steny Hoyer and Blue Dog PAC. He posted strong fundraising numbers throughout last year, but he failed to make the top two runoff. The suburbs rule. Lawmakers and leading operatives on both sides of the aisle have grown increasingly convinced that suburban districts will be 2018's central battleground in the war for control of the House. And the matchups created by Tuesday's primary in two highly targeted races likely cement that expectation. Much of the party's turnout gains were focused in metro and suburban zones like these. Outside of Dallas, Alred posted an unexpectedly large margin of victory in a crowded primary to set himself up as a clear favorite in May's runoff before taking on Republican Representative Pete Sessions, in a district that went for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And in suburban Houston, in another Clinton district, the vulnerable Culberson will also have to wait until May to find out his opponent's identity. The vote totals. The number of votes in the GOP primary exceeded the Democratic primary tally by only 5,000, reflect serious interest from Democrats in the district Culberson has represented for 9 terms. "This is proof positive of everything we've been talking about with these newly competitive districts, growing in diversity, highly educated oftentimes," said Charlie Kelly, executive director of House Majority PAC, the main Democratic super PAC for House races. "Places that, I think, are now really competitive. We saw the transition in 2016, and we're seeing more evidence today." The Year of the Woman starts off strong. Texas is on track to get its first 2 Latina members of Congress, while also elevating women in some of the most hotly contested primaries and top-tier races throughout the state. The Democrats coming out of the Texas primaries tonight are women and people of color in greater numbers than we've seen in the past, and it reflects the diversity of the modern-day Democratic Party, Baker said. The Democratic nominee facing Representative Will Hurd for his battleground seat will likely be a woman. Obama administration alum Gina Ortiz Jones finished first in a Democratic primary on Tuesday night, while Judy Canels, another former Obama administration official, was battling a male candidate for second place Wednesday morning. In Houston, Moser and Fletcher are squaring off, before one of them turns to Culberson. In Dallas, Lillian Salerno will run against Alred. All of Emily's List endorsed candidates in Democratic primaries either won outright or advanced to a runoff. The pro-abortion rights group president, Stephanie Clifford, called it a historic night in a statement. Sylvia Garcia, a state senator, and Veronica Escobar, a former El Paso County judge, both clinched the nomination in their respective primaries, clearing their path to likely becoming the first Hispanic women to represent the state in Congress. Garcia drew a strong challenge from Tahir Javed, a healthcare executive who self-funded much of his bid, but her name ID in the district outstripped his endorsement from Senator Chuck Schumer, DNY. Escobar won the primary in Democratic Representative Beto O'Rourke's El Paso-based seat, and will be a prohibitive favorite in November in a majority Hispanic district that backed Hillary Clinton by a 46-point margin.